Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 19, Text 39, Translation and Commentary by His Divine Grace, Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Vijaya Ratha Kutumbe Ata Totre Dhrita Haya Rashmini Tat Shriya Ikshaniye Bhagavati Ratihi Astu Me Mumurshoho Yam Iha Niriksha Hataha Gataha Swarupam Vijayarata Kutumba Atatotre Dritahaya Rashmani Tachtriye Kshaniye Bhagavati Ratirastu Me Mumurshor Yam Iha Niriksha Hata Gata Swarupam Vijayarata Kutumba Atatotre Dritahaya Rashmani Tachtriye Kshaniye Bhagavati Ratirastu Me Mumurshor Yam Iha Niriksha Hata Gata Swarupam Vijayarata Kutumba Atatotre Ratirastu Me Mumurshor Yam Iha Niriksha Hatagata Swarupam Vijayarata Kutumba Atatotre Dritahaya Rashmani Tachtriye Kshaniye Bhagavati Ratirastu Me Mumurshor Yamiha Niriksha Hatagata Swarupam Vijayarata Kutumba Atatotre Dritahaya Rashmani Tachtriye Kshaniye Bhagavati Ratirastu Me Mumukshu Yam Iha Niriksha Hatagata Swarupam Vijayarata Kutumba Atatotre Dritahaya Rashmani Tachtriye Kshaniye Bhagavati ratirastu me mamurshur. Yameha nirikshat hatha katha swarupam. Messages? Vijaya Ratha Kutumba Atatotre Dritahaya Rashmani Tachriye Khaniye Bhagavati Rati Rastu Me Mumurshur Yam Iha Nirikshaya Kata Kata Swarupam Vijaya Ratha Kutumba Atatotre Dritahaya Rashmani Tachriye Khaniye Bhagavati Rati Rastu Me Mumurshur Yamiha Niriksha Hatha Gata Swarupam Vijaya Ratha Kutumba Tatotre Dritahaya Rashmani Tachriye Khaniye Bhagavati Rati Rastu Me Mumurshur Yamiha Niriksha Gata Swarupam. Translation. At the moment of death, this is Bhishma Dev speaking. At the moment of death, let my ultimate attraction be to Sri Krishna, the personality of Godhead. I concentrate my mind upon the chariot driver of Arjuna, who stood with a whip in his right hand and a bridle rope in his left, who was very careful to give protection to Arjuna's chariot by all means. Those who saw him on the battlefield of Kurukshetra attained their original forms after death. A pure devotee of the Lord constantly sees the presence of the Lord within himself because of being transcendentally related by loving service. Such a pure devotee cannot forget the Lord for a moment. This is called trance. The mystic, yogi, tries to concentrate upon the Supersoul by controlling the senses from all other engagements, and thus he ultimately attains samadhi. A devotee more easily attains samadhi or trance by constantly remembering the Lord's personal feature along with His holy name, fame, pastimes, etc. Therefore, the concentration of the mystic yogi and that of the devotee are not on the same level. The concentration of the mystic is mechanical, whereas that of the pure devotee is natural in pure love and spontaneous affection. Bhishma Dev was a pure devotee, and as a military marshal, he constantly remembered the battlefield feature of the Lord as Partha Sarati, the chariot driver of Arjuna. Therefore, the Lord's pastime as Partha Sarati is also eternal. The pastimes of the Lord, beginning from his birth at the prison house of Kamsa, up to the Mosala Leela at the end, all move one after another in all the universes, just as the clock hand moves from one point to another. And in such pastimes, his associates like the Pandavas and Bhishma are constant eternal companions. So, Bhishma Dev never forgot the beautiful feature of the Lord as Partha Sarati, which even Arjuna could not see. Arjuna was behind the beautiful Partha Sarati, while Bhishma Dev was just in front of the Lord. As far as the military feature of the Lord is concerned, Bhishma Dev observed this with more relish than Arjuna. All the soldiers and persons on the battlefield of Kurukshetra attained their original spiritual form like the Lord after their death, because by the causeless mercy of the Lord they were able to see him face to face on that occasion. The conditioned souls rotating in the evolutionary cycle from the aquatics up to the form of Brahma are all in the form of Maya, or the form obtained by one's own actions and awarded by material nature. The material forms of the conditioned souls are all foreign dresses, and when the conditioned soul becomes liberated from the clutches of material energy, he attains his original form. The impersonalist wants to attain the impersonal Brahman effulgence of the Lord, but that is not at all congenial to the living sparks, parts and parcels of the Lord. Therefore, the impersonalists again fall down and get material forms, which are all false to the spirit soul. A spiritual form like the Lord's, either two-handed or four-handed, is attained by the devotees of the Lord, either in the Vaikunthas or in the Golok planet, according to the original nature of the soul. This form, which is 10% spiritual, is the Swarup of the living being, and all the living beings who participated in the battlefield of Kurukshetra on both sides attained their Swarup, as confirmed by Bhishma Deva. So, Lord Sri Krishna was not merciful only to the Pandavas, he was also merciful to the other parties, because all of them attained the same result. Bhishma Dev wanted the same facility also, and that was his prayer to the Lord, although his position as an associate of the Lord is assured in all circumstances. The conclusion is that whoever dies looking on the personality of Godhead within or without attains his Swarup, which is the highest perfection of life. The passing of Bhishma Dev from this world is so glorious that it's celebrated up to the present day. Maybe you see in the Vaishnav calendar, Bhishmashtami means the day on which Bhishma passed away from this world. And that's still celebrated in some parts of India, not very widely. There's a lot about death in the Srimad Bhagavatam, isn't there? Bhishma's death, the whole narration of Shukadev is to Parikshit, who is waiting for death. Life is meant for death. Jatasya hi dhruvang mrityuhu. For one who is born, death is inevitable. In English there's a saying, quite likely in Russian also, as sure as death. Is there a saying? Yeah. If you want to say something's really sure, then you say, as sure as death. Because you cannot avoid death. Some silly people who call themselves scientists tell us that they're going to make some scientific discovery by which we will never die. And some very intelligent and enlightened people tell us how actually we can never die. We can go beyond death. One of Srila Prabhupada's first published books, small book, it's called Beyond Birth and Death. And the basic teaching of Bhagavad Gita is that everyone has to die, but no one ever dies. That sounds like nonsense, but it has to be, each of these two phrases has to be understood contextually. Everyone has to die means the body inevitably will die. And no one ever dies means that the soul, who we really are, never dies. This is the world of death, sometimes called Martya Loka for that very reason. In this movement, we're very interested in death. This is a death movement. People may think, oh, it's one of those very dangerous cults engaged in killing people. No, we're saving people from death. But to save people from death, you have to be conscious of death and understand actually what is going on. Actually, it's a life-giving movement because achaitanyamidam vishvam, this whole universe is moving on in non-consciousness, death consciousness. People identify themselves with the body, which is ontologically dead. So by giving knowledge of the soul and activities in relation to the soul, this movement is a life-giving movement. It gives life so that we can learn how to die. Bhajan kara, sadhan kara, marte janle hoy. Srila Prabhupada sometimes quoted this Bengali saying that everything we do in our practice of Krishna consciousness will be known, it will be tested at the time of death. So more important than life coaches is death coaches. How to live your life in such a way that you can die in the best possible way. What is the best possible way to die? Well, maybe I'll have some nice girls dancing in front of me when I'm dying. Someone may think the good way to die is to die with nice girls dancing in front of you, or listening to my favorite music. Well, that's good for devotees, listening to Hare Krishna mantra, but someone may think in terms of some heavy metal music or whatever. But learning how to die in such a way that we never die again. The whole of Bhagavad Gita, actually we can say the whole of Bhagavad Gita is concerned with, and we can give so many topics which we can say is the subject of Bhagavad Gita. It's such a oceanic, concise but oceanic at the same time. The whole of Bhagavad Gita is concerned with death and overcoming death, and the particular way to die in such a way that we can conquer over death. Well, there's more than one verse in Bhagavad Gita which addresses this topic. Okay, any suggestions? Tell me at least one verse in this regard. Wait. Just say one. Put your hand up. I can't hear. It becomes a cacophony, if you will. Okay. Janma karma cha me divyam. Continue. You don't know the rest. Okay, you didn't die properly. You only... Anyone want to finish off? Next line. Janma karma cha me divyam. Wait a minute, one hand up please, Don't all die at once. Yeah, please. Okay, very good. Spasiba bolshaye. What is the meaning of this verse? Okay, you say. Chaitanya Nityananda. Say it out loud because you don't have a microphone. All right, you know it. Okay, let him say it. Okay, well, I presume you got it right. Can you say it? Then another one. Yes, Sankirtan Guru. No, almost, not quite. Just go one verse more and you'll get it right. Yang vapi smaran bhavam is a general statement, and the verse after... No, yeah. The verse next to that. Yeah, okay, say it. Hey, you're cheating, you're looking it up, right? Chapter 8 of the Gita is particular about dying. I was thinking of antakale chamameva, smaran muktva kalevaram yaprayati samadbhavam yati nasyatra sangshayaha. Whoever remembers me at the time of death attains to my nature, Krishna says, which means comes to me. This is actually because at the end of chapter 7, look at the end of chapter 7. What's the last verse? Sadi bhutadi daivang mam. Read it out. Sadi yagyam chaye vedahu prayana kale chagat. Here we have prayana kale. He's talking, prayana kala means the time of death. So Krishna says, who knows all these things? The Adi Bhuta, the Adi Daiva, the Adi Yagya. They can, at the time of death, they can attain to my nature. So Arjuna starts the 8th chapter by saying that, well, what's it all about? What is Adi Bhuta, Adi Yagya, Adi Daiva? And then he comes to the question, Prayana chakale chakatam geyosi niyatatma bihi. And he comes to the question, and how can those who are self-controlled know you at the time of death? And Krishna answers all the other questions just in one word. Almost cryptically, because, almost cryptically. Oh yeah, King Tad Brahma Kim Adhyatma, and then Krishna says, Aksharang Brahma Paramam. The Param Brahma is Akshara, which again, it's almost cryptic. But then the question, Prayana Kali Chakatam Geyo Siniyatatma Bihi. How can those who are self-controlled, who are practicing spiritual life, how can they know you at the time of death? Krishna devotes the whole chapter to discussing this. What is the 8th chapter? And the key verse here is this, Antakale chamameva smaran mukva kalevaram yaprayati samadbhavam tyajante what is it? Tyajante I also forgot. I'm not going back to go. I only got 3/4. Yati nasti atra sangshayaha. Okay, so Krishna says, whoever remembers me at the time of death attains to my nature. So every one of us is going to die. No, I not Krishna, I'm saying it now. Krishna says it, I say it, you can say it, it's a fact. Everyone's going to die. It's an intense experience, especially if we're not prepared for it. Can be very scary and painful. It's such an impending trauma that we develop whole civilizations based on how to forget the fact that we're going to die. Yeah, this is a basketball training stadium or what? Facility. Basketball training facility for professional basketball players. It's just one of the many things that people devise to distract their attention away from the really important thing is that we're all going to die. Living life in the imagination that we're not going to die. There is a whole edge of one city, Napoli in Italy. It goes right up the side of Mount Vesuvius. Maybe you heard of Mount Vesuvius, which is a volcanic mountain. Hasn't erupted for a long time. Can erupt at any time. And generally when volcanoes erupt, they do suddenly. But the land on the side of the volcano, it's very fertile land. So it's thickly settled with people who hope that the volcano won't erupt. It sounds pretty stupid living on the side of a volcanic mountain. But we're all doing that. Inasmuch as we don't take precaution about how we're going to die. We're all passing through our lives as if we're going to live forever. as is famously stated by Yudhishthira Maharaj. Ahanyahani bhutani gachandeha yamalayam sheshas thavara ichanti kimascharya ataf param. Being asked by the Yaksha, what is the most amazing thing, Yudhishthira gave this reply. Yudhishthira was a man of the world. He had seen much of the world. He'd spent 13 years, well, not at that time, not 13 years, but he'd spent actually most of his life hearing from great rishis about wonderful things all over the universe. But he replied that the most amazing thing is that every day so many people, they die. Specifically, he stated they go to the place of Yamaraja, the place of the Lord of death, the Lord of punishment. But everyone lives in this world as if they're not going to die. What is more astonishing than this? Srila Prabhupada in one lecture was discussing on the verse at the end of the first canto of Bhagavatam, in which it stated that as long as the recitation of Bhagavatam is going on, then the Lord of Death cannot enter here. And Srila Prabhupada, he stated in the course of lecturing on this verse, that as soon as we enter Krishna consciousness, we become deathless. We enter the atmosphere of deathlessness. He explained that for a devotee, death, it's like going to sleep and waking up and you're with Krishna. So, that made me think, okay, good. I, along with all my god-siblings, in old age, or at least at the beginning of old age, those of my god-siblings who have not yet left this world, it happens in the lives of most people that they enter a phase before their death where they are to a large extent not able to do anything. Srila Prabhupada lying on his bed in Vrindavan in the last few months of his manifest presence, manifesting the pastime of being helpless. He needed help even to sit up. And he told his disciples, do not think that this will not happen to you. He was teaching us how to prepare for death and preparing us for that period before death. We don't, as we come to what Srila Prabhupada called the fag end of life, we don't want to lament that I didn't do more service, I could have done more service. We don't want to lament that I could have been more serious about Krishna consciousness, but I wasted my life in so many ways. Hari Hari Bifale Janama Gawaino Manusha Janama Paya Radha Krishna Nabhajiya Janiya Shuniya Bisha Kaino. Narottam Das calls out to Lord Hari that uselessly I have passed my life. Having got the human form of life, I didn't worship Radha and Krishna. And thus, knowingly, I have drunk poison. Now, we don't want, of course, Narottam Das is on the very highest platform of pure devotional service. But we don't want to lament that I didn't develop my attachment for serving Srila Prabhupada, for serving Krishna. On the other hand, we have confidence that right now, if I continue trying to do the best I can despite my limitations, that Krishna will help me. Krishna is looking after me. He'll take me to where I need to go. If I'm not fully ready to go back to Godhead, He'll put me in a situation where I can continue to prepare myself. We are safe in the hands of Krishna. Of course, we do want to go to Krishna. Krishna wants us to go to Him, so we should also want to go to Him. So we can pray to Krishna to please help me be free from all my material attachments, from my false egoism, from all desires, gross and subtle, desires for name, fame and glory, honor and distinction. So we can say that, all right, Krishna, please come and take me. I'm ready. You please come. Wherever you want to take me, I'm your surrendered servant. We hear praise, well, we regularly sing prayers to this effect. Mama janmani janmanishvare bhavatad bhaktir ahaitu tvai. Chokudan dilorje janme janme Prabhu say that we're ready to take another birth if Krishna so desires. Nija guna doshe jai jai. Nija karma guna doshe jai jai janma pai. What is that? Bhaktivinoda Thakur. Jai jai janma pai. Jena tava nama guna gai. That he sings that wherever I may go, nija guna karma doshe jai jai janma pai. Whatever birth I get according to my good and bad activities, may I continue to sing your glories. He's praying to Krishna. Your name and glories. So we pray to Krishna, you take me and let me continue to serve you with heart and soul, either in this world or the other world. We're confident that we will be with Krishna, Srila Prabhupada, all the devotees. That is our confidence and our hope. Even in the beginning of the Bhagavad Gita, we hear about this. Dehinosmin yata dehe kaumarang yovanang jara tata dehantara praptir dhiras tatra namuhyati. We change bodies throughout the life, from boyhood to youth to old age. And then we have a change of body. One who is dhira, who is sober, is not bewildered by such a change. So we should not be bewildered by death, but knowing what we have learned from Bhagavad Gita. When inevitable death approaches us, we should know this is nothing to be afraid of. Of course, it can happen very suddenly also. Heart attack, alive, just walking around, and then all of a sudden dead. Walking along, not looking where you're going, wander in the street, a bus hits you, and you don't even have time to think. But anyway, however we have to leave this body, we should know that death is another step in purification. Everything is arranged by Krishna, especially for his devotees. So death is another step in coming closer to Krishna. When we're in Krishna's hands, then everything is, we see, orchestrated by him for coming closer to him. And that way we can see that death is not a curse, it's another kind of blessing from Krishna. That doesn't mean that we should just go on with life and die, but we should try, while we're healthy and strong, we should try our best to apply ourselves to Krishna consciousness. Because Naratanu bhajane mool, that the human body is the root, in that human body there's the possibility for Krishna consciousness. But the body generally becomes more troublesome as we get older. And so much effort has to be put in just maintaining the body to perform its regular functions. Therefore, King Kulashekar prayed. Anyone? Krishna tvadiya padapankaja panjarantam adyaiva me vishatu manasa raja hangsa. What's the next line? I got it written down here. Prana prayana samaye kapavata pittai kantavarodhana. The voice becomes choked. Vidho smaranam kutaste. Krishna tvadiya, O Krishna, your lotus feet I want that. It's very poetic language, that just as the swan, the king of swans, wraps his neck around the swan, around the lotus, so may my mind be trapped at your lotus feet. He says that at the time of death, that prana prayana, when the life airs leave the body, prana prayana samaya kapavata pitto, all the humors of the body become disturbed, kapavata pittai, and then the voice becomes choked up, and then how can I remember you at the time of death? Here's Srila Prabhupada's translation. My dear Lord Krishna, I pray that the swan of my mind may immediately sink down to the stems of the lotus feet of your Lordship and be locked in their network. Otherwise, at the time of my final breath, when my throat is choked up with cough, how will it be possible to think of you? Life is meant for death, that we can say as an existential fact, that everyone has to die. But in another way we can understand this statement also, that life, human life, is meant for preparing for death. Labdva sudurlabham idam bahusambhavante manusham artadam anityam api hadhira turnam yatetana patedanumritya yavan nisrayasaya vishaya kalu sarvata syat. In this verse the word mrityu comes, death, and also the word birth comes. So, having attained the human birth, after many births, we should consider, if we are dhira, if we are sober-minded, the same word is in that verse. Dehinosmin yatade. So if we're sober-minded, we should consider that we've had many births. Now we got this rare human form of life. It doesn't last very long. So we should immediately utilize it to prepare ourselves for death, so that we don't prepare ourselves in such a way that we don't have to die again. Knowing that sense gratification is available in every species of life. So we shouldn't waste this life on that. Knowing that there are more important things than being alive in this world. Simply to be alive without Krishna consciousness, then it is as if being dead. I'm going to relate a short story from ancient Mesopotamia, which was sent to me by a godbrother, which indicates the inevitability of death. Mesopotamia, more or less, it corresponds with modern Iraq, kind of. So the capital was Baghdad, ancient city of the world. A merchant in Baghdad sent his servant to the market for purchasing some things. Soon after, the servant came back, his face completely white, and said, "In the marketplace, some woman jostled him," and he recognized that woman as death personified. And she looked directly at him. So he begged the merchant, "Give me your horse, I'm running away from here." So he went very quickly on the horse, 125 kilometers to a place called Samara. Obviously not the Samara in Russia. So the merchant is very curious. He says, "Oh, death personified is in the marketplace. Let me go and have a look." And not everyone can see death personified, but he went to the marketplace and he saw her in Mesopotamian folklore, or whatever you want to call it. Death is as a woman. In American folklore, it's a man with a long cloak with a big, what do you call that? That scythe, and they call the Grim Reaper. And this is American folklore I'm talking about. Scythe, you know that for cutting grass? They use it, I've seen it here in Russia also. It's a long blade with a long handle. Long one, and you go like this. And nowadays they have these noisy machines. Anyway, the merchant goes to the marketplace and said, "Hey, why did you saw death? Said, why did you threaten my servant? Now he's run away." He said, "I wasn't threatening him, I was just looking at him in surprise." I was surprised to see him here in Baghdad, because I have it in my book that I'd be meeting him in the evening in Samara. Sometimes devotees think that, well, when I die, then I'll know everything for sure. Then I'll know everything for sure. Then I'll know, if his Krishna consciousness is real or not, or whether there's life after death or whatever. But if we're in Maya and we die in Maya, it's not that all of a sudden we become self-realized. We remain in Maya. It's not that everything's automatically revealed to you just by dying. We have to do our work in this lifetime so that everything will be revealed to us, not just by dying. Or we think that, well, everyone who's initiated and has got a bead bag in their hand, they must have gone back to Godhead. When you die, you go back to Godhead. Not necessarily. Srila Prabhupada said, if we have any material desires, then we have to remain in this material world. That sounds portentous, doesn't it? Of course, there are things we can do to help us on the way, or others can help us on the way by chanting when we're passing away. We should talk like this from time to time, just to remind us that we're all waiting to die. Often people come to me and say, "It's my birthday," or "It's my child's birthday." Someone came to me yesterday and told me that it's their son's birthday tomorrow. Yeah, it's you. Your son is how old? 5 years old. Yes. 5 years old. That means 5 years dead. 5 years already gone. But he's on the path of deathlessness. Sometimes Krishna very kindly comes to us in the form of, for instance, cancer or some other terminal disease, by which we get notice that, well, it's going to be, you don't have so much time, you better get ready. So then we can, to some extent, plan our death. Parikshit Maharaj had a planned death. He was in a lot of anxiety. I've only 7 days to live and I don't know how to die. Fortunately, Shukadev came and told him that you have to be Krishna conscious, which Parikshit had been from the beginning of his life. We're in a very fortunate situation that we are able to plan our death. We don't know exactly how we're going to die, but our whole life is a plan, or it's how we can prepare ourselves for the last moment. That's one important perspective on what we're doing with our lives. We should live our whole life in the consciousness that we are going to die, and we have to prepare ourselves for that. Because, as Sankirtan Guru Prabhu quoted, yang vapi smaran bhavam tyajyante kalevaram tam tame vaiti kaunteya sada tad bhava bhavitaha. The consciousness at the time of death carries us to the next body. And generally the consciousness that we cultivate throughout life becomes prominent in our mind at the time of death. So we should be very careful to cultivate Krishna consciousness throughout life. And to tell others also that they should utilize their human form of life to cultivate Krishna consciousness before their inevitable death. So, your 5-year-old boy, he should be trained so he doesn't die. Guru na sasyat sujano na sasyat Pita na sasyad janani na sasyan Daivang datatyan napatista sasyat Namochayadyah samupeta mrityam. One should not become a guru. Guru na sasyat. One should not become related with someone. One should not become a father or a mother or accept honor from others or become the husband of another unless he can deliver them from death. Hare Krishna.